When it comes to vertical shooting games, few have the staying power that the Raiden series does. Like other royal shooting series like Gradius, R-Type, and Dodonpachi, Raiden has seen its fair share of ports, spin-offs, and sequels, some of them pretty great, others not so much. The most recent of them is, well, it's Raiden V.
Well, I'd like to relax over a coffee now, but it seems that's not possible.
Fuck you! We gotta be honest, like R-Type, Raiden has seen better days, despite a fresh coat of HD glossy paint. Raiden DX is generally regarded by many as the series' best installment, and I can see why. It's paced rather well, holds a decent challenge, and builds significantly upon Raiden II, which itself never even got its own standalone console release. But for us, we have to go with Raiden IV. We've gotten every home version of Raiden IV released so far, so it should come as no surprise that we got right on top of its newest iteration on Nintendo Switch, Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix. Raiden IV was developed by Moss and first released to arcades on June 7, 2007 using Taito Type X hardware. A port was made for the Xbox 360, which was released on October 2, 2008 in Japan and September 9th the next year in North America. A separate Nesica Live Arcade release on Taito X2 hardware dropped on March 29, 2012. Raiden IV also got an enhanced worldwide Overkill release in 2014 with a PC version following the next year. Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix built upon Overkill as well, and made its way exclusively to the Nintendo Switch on April 22, 2021 in Japan, and May 6, 2021 in North America. There is no European release as of this review. In a lot of ways, Raiden IV Overkill is the apex of the series, maintaining all of the aspects that make it Raiden, without the bloat of a meaningless mid-mission story or black sheep mechanics. But we've already covered Raiden IV Overkill in the past with a decently thorough review in episode 98. It's actually our most viewed one, if you can believe it. So for this review, we're going to take a look at how the new Switch release stacks up compared to its predecessors. For the full details on Overkill, be sure to check it out using the card in the corner here. Otherwise, here's the short and sweet on Mikado's gameplay. The gameplay in Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix is exactly the same as you would expect from any Raiden release since Raiden III, whether it be on PS3, Xbox 360, or PC. Players start with a low-level rapid shot with the option of switching weapon types by way of a cycling crystal power-up. Red for machine guns, blue for a javelin-style laser, and purple for the plasma laser. The plasma laser can be substituted with the three-pronged sweeping proton laser before the game starts if desired, though. Regardless of which weapon crystal is picked up, the player's weapon level will always increase, unlike earlier games that only increased the weapon power through pickups of the same type in use. This not only allows players to change weapons to better suit their current situation, but also to better recover after death. The same goes for the supplemental missile pickups that some enemies will release when destroyed. Players have their choice of 3 different ship types, 2 of which started out as DLC on the Xbox 360 version, but have been included and selectable right out of the gate since the Overkill release on PlayStation 3. The Raiden Mark II and the Fairy change the player's movement speed as well as their shot patterns and power, and adds flexibility to suit different playstyles. Played through 5 stages in arcade and 7 stages in additional, formerly known as Xbox 360 mode, as well as Overkill over the course of 2 loops, players will definitely have their work cut out for them. Thanks to a sharp increase in rank which affects bullet speed significantly as progress is made, there will be some insanely fast enemy fire that will be very tricky to dodge. The player's relatively slow ship speed and the extreme proximities enemies will have to the bottom of the screen will see lesser players dying constantly. At the very least though, the player's movement is still faster than that found in Raiden III. Thankfully, the player can start on any cleared stage, allowing for practice to find the most effective ways of tackling them. As such, there's a decent amount of staying power in Raiden IV as players get accustomed to the game's unforgiving nature, player waves and behaviors, boss strategies, and so forth. An unlockable boss rush mode adds even more game to play. One final note with regards to performance, the Switch version, thankfully, does not exhibit any especially noticeable input lag, and played well using the PDP Face-Off gamepad and the Hori Rap 5 Hayabusa arcade stick. It also runs exceptionally smooth with no hiccups in the frame rate like we found in the PC version. We went fairly deep into the scoring in our previous Raiden IV Overkill review, so being that this is the exact same game, more or less, as Overkill was, here's the skinny on Mikado's scoring. It can be pretty involved depending on the mode being played, though for the most part, destroying enemies as quickly as possible is the easiest way players will make significant gains in the score department. In the arcade and additional modes, the flash system will grant up to a 5 times multiplier for any enemy kill, bosses included. The faster, the better. But in Overkill, players will instead receive medals that change in value and size relative to how fast the enemy is destroyed. This isn't worth as much as a good run with the other mode's flash multipliers, but it still definitely helps. Meanwhile, Overkill emphasizes overkilling the wreckage left behind from larger enemies, which can be pumped up through 5 levels depending on the amount of damage the player can deal before they eventually blow up. This can be risky on higher difficulties thanks to other enemies and their fire, but with up to 100,000 points on the line with a level 5 bonus item, it can often be worth it. Both modes reward the player with 10,000 points for weapon and missile pickups beyond maximum level, 3,000 points for gold bonuses left behind from destroying certain emplacements or enemies, and bullet grazing will also add some extra— Wait, what is that? Is it? It is! It's a Sol Tower! Wait, hold on. This couldn't also be— Well, what the hell? They were there the whole time? And we activated them? And I never even noticed it? And they're worth 100,000 points each? Shameful. The stage end bonuses are exactly the same, the additional bonus stages are intact in Overkill, and anyone who has perfected their scoring routine in other versions will be right at home here, regardless of the mode played. As always, local leaderboards exist for all game modes and difficulties, and an online score attack mode allows players to compete against others from around the globe in Overkill, Additional, and Arcade. Alright, now we're getting to the meat and potatoes of the matter. With the exception of an alternate title screen, Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix is more or less identical to its predecessors at a glance. But we also notice straight away that its visuals have some issues. As was the case in the Switch version of Caladrius Blaze, also by Moss, the entire game's 2D elements and menus look softer and slightly blurrier than even the earliest console entries of the game. Again, I had to make sure for myself, so here's Mikado versus Raiden IV on Xbox 360. Versus Overkill on PlayStation 3, and versus Overkill on PC. Furthermore, the in-game HUD and weapon pickups suffer from some nasty artifacting as well, almost as if they're degraded JPEGs. Here's Mikado versus Raiden IV on Xbox 360. Versus Overkill on PlayStation 3, and versus Overkill on PC. The menus are most notably blurry in a horizontal layout, while the HUD and icons will jump out considerably more in Tate. But there's a trade-off. In terms of performance, Mikado Remix is at least on par with every other version of the game, and even outperforms them in certain ways. The Xbox 360 and PlayStation 3 versions chug a bit when giant explosions happen, but they remain quite a bit smoother on the Switch. The frame rate in the PC version also tends to hitch from time to time, which is a little confusing given the power behind our rig. However, no such performance snags occur in the Mikado version. All in all, while it isn't as pretty as any other version of the game, Raiden IV on the Switch is every bit as capable from a gameplay standpoint, and that's gotta count for something. So far, everything we've seen is exactly the same as what you'll find on systems that have been around for 16 years. Holy shit, seriously, 16? So what does Mikado Remix offer players that may have already squeezed as much as they could out of Raiden IV on other platforms? New music. Mikado Remix is all about that arranged OST, produced exclusively for the Switch by Game Center Mikado, one of the hottest arcades in Japan today. In fact, it quadruples down by adding separate arranged track lists for both Overkill and Arcade, which themselves are in addition to the original tracks and the Overkill arranged tracks. A number of very high-profile artists are featured here, with a little indicator displaying in the bottom left-hand corner with each track played. The only problem? We feel as if these are the weakest tracks the game has yet seen. We really liked the original Go and Akira Sato soundtrack from the 2008 release, and the overkill arrange, especially the stuff from Shinji Hosoi, wasn't too bad, though not as good. But I gotta say, it's super saddening to see artists like Rolling Gunner's Casio pop up with a super weak rendition of one of Raiden's best ever compositions. Others, like the boss theme here, sound as if it was directly inspired from a Homestar Runner skit. You know the one.
Dear Strongman, can you play the guitar?
While these new arrangements do add a little more value to an otherwise identical, near-decade-old version of a 14-year-old game, we'd have still gotten this one if these tracks weren't an in-game thing. They definitely don't inspire us to get the set with the sound CD though, but you know, my FOMO's acting up, so we'll have to see. Of course, the original sound sets are 100% available and can be selected in the options menu. Unfortunately, these tracks have nasty gaps between them at the points where they loop. This can be super jarring. Looping sound effects like this lift are also a little skippy. This version of the game does not have any sort of achievement system and is the first home console release not to include them. Otherwise, a significant gallery, replays, and an expanded sound test rounds out the presentation. So, how does Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix stack up? Let's take a look. Identical in every way to previous versions, the Mikado Remix version of this game will feel exactly the same, but Joy-Cons will not work especially well, particularly when they start to drift. Raiden IV has always been a significant challenge, and this version is no exception. With 2 loops, 4 game modes, and an online competitive score attack mode for most of them, there's a lot to play here, just as it was in Overkill. The visuals take a noticeable hit on Switch, but it performs very well otherwise. At the very least, the 3D models look very good. The sound is where the Mikado Remix really differentiates itself from other versions of the game. We didn't especially like the new renditions though, and some weird sound gaps at the track loop points are jarring. The Mikado Remix adds nothing to the gameplay of any other version of the game since Overkill on PlayStation 3. It is nice to have a portable version of it though. Just be sure to get a better alternative to the Joy-Cons. I can get behind another version of Raiden IV all day long. However, while it boasts a good cost of value, the PC version is still a much better buy. Raiden IV is our modern go-to in the series, so it's great to have all of the game's available modes in a more portable alternative to the PlayStation 3 and PC. But we have to say, the new BGM arrangements don't do much for us. This may or may not be the case for everyone, but at the very least it plays as solidly as any other version. However, visually cleaner versions do exist for less in other places. Still, especially if you're a fan of the Raiden series like we are and felt a little let down by what Raiden V tried, like we did, this is a great place to turn your attention. Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix gets a 4.25 out of 5. You can get a copy of Raiden IV Cross Mikado Remix today on the Nintendo eShop for about $30 US. It's also available physically on sites like Amazon and PlayAsia. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell, and share our channel. It helps a lot. See you all in the next episode.